What's up, jammies? Welcome back to Ricky's Ram Jam, presented by Barefoot Wine. How's everybody's off-season going? Not much to report on the Rams' end. Just heading out of a quiet free agency and into the draft. We probably don't oh my gosh, wait. Whoa. We have a lot to catch up on. I wanted to try something different today and hit both topics. So we'll do a little free agency talk and a little look ahead with the draft. So I have a jam-packed episode for you today. Jourdan Rodrigue of The Athletic is joining me to dig into free agency. And then we have NFL Network's draft analyst Bucky stopping by to look ahead of the draft. So let's raise a toast to my first guest today, Jourdan Rodrigue. Jourdan, hello.
Hi, it's great to see you.
It's so great to see you. Not much to catch up on, right? I mean, I don't know, Aaron Donald retired, a few, big free agency moves. How would you sum up your last month or so?
What is a month?
What is time?
What is time? Yeah, it's been crazy. There are no normal months, I think, in Rams football. This is my consistent slogan for this team is keep the Rams weird. So now heading into 2024 and officially welcoming in kind of like the first day back at school with OTAs starting and all of that. It's the same thing this year again. Keep the Rams weird, and
right.
it is the roller coaster that the sport takes people on. The fans have had to kind of process the Aaron Donald retirement, as well as, getting to know and welcoming in a new wave of players. And they will do so again in the next couple of weeks with the draft. So just really been a fascinating couple of weeks, months, years. I don't know what time is. So
time does not exist. Okay, so let's break it down for I know, jammies are very plugged in and they're kind of caught up on all the latest free agency moves, but the interior offensive line was a big priority for the Rams this offseason. I mean, you've talked about it today, even talking about when, Rob haven't signed up at the podium today, which was so great, but how important was it to re-sign Dotson after the season he had?
Yeah, huge move. And it's not even that they were able to get that done, which was significant, obviously, but that they got it done before free agency actually opened. That was so important because that allowed them to take a step back and say, okay, wow, Jonah Jackson has not been re-signed by his team, the Detroit Lions, and we can go out and get this guy who we were really deeply evaluating just in case we couldn't re-sign Kevin, and then we'd have to do more shuffling. And at that point, they did want to re-sign Coleman Shelton, but at that point, you can't wait. And he was making sure that he had a market, and he did, and that's great for him. But you can't wait if an opportunity like that comes up. And the Rams learned this the hard way a couple of years ago in the 2022 free agency period. So they couldn't wait, and they had the flexibility to not only retain Kevin Dotson, which was huge, not just for their pass protection for Matthew Stafford at the interior of the pocket, but also a lot of the duo run concepts, a lot of the gap scheme stuff that they started running this last year. Kevin was absolutely crucial to making that go. And Rob Havenstein likes playing next to him. Continuity is so important along the offensive line. And then they also had position flex with Steve Avila, who is going to be moving to center. So that's going to be a learning curve for everybody, but nobody to me will be better equipped than Steve. And it meant that you could basically do a 3-for-1, shoring up your interior because you got Kevin done so early in the process. Right. So I think the timing, the move was crucial, but the timing of the move was what really made those three items sing, I think.
Yeah, they just clicked. And it's like you just alluded to, and we'll break it down, that Jonah Jackson from Detroit, we secure the other guard spot, and then we're going to move Steve Avila to center. How overall, with all of these pieces, like you just said, fit together, how intimidating is this Rams O-line, looking for 2024?
I wouldn't want to block them.
Yes,
no. No, I mean, so it's a combination of continuity, size, and athletic ability, but there's also a real savviness all across the line because Rob, he's the wise vet. I always tell him when I see him, I'm not going to call you old or imply you're old this year, Rob, even though you got more grays going here. And, and Kevin has, right, in my soul as well. Time doesn't exist. It's fine.
No.
So, Rob, like locking it down in terms of that team captain, that presence, and then having guys like bona fide dudes who have played a lot of football, a lot of really competitive football. Alaric Jackson signed his tender as well, and he's going to be, holding down the left side. He is a significant addition or fine for that college free agency committee who brought him in a few years ago as an undrafted free agent, and he's developed in-house since then. And he's played a lot of football at this point and is still getting better. You could see his improvement season over season over the last 2 years. And then having Jonah Jackson, a Pro Bowler who has played a lot of football, and Steve Avila is now, even though he's one of the most promising talents, I think, of any young offensive lineman in the league, he may be inexperienced in the NFL at his position, but he's played a lot of snaps at center while in college. And he also now has played a lot of relative to others, a lot of NFL football because he played every single snap last year. So the continuity, the relative experience, the size is super important. Matthew Stafford's got to really feel like he's got an actual wall in front of him in terms of some of those guys. This type of football that the Rams want to play requires investment. Protecting Matthew Stafford in this way requires investment. And that is very clear and apparent where the Rams put all of their resources this spring.
Absolutely. And Matthew Stafford's very excited about this, but I can imagine Kyren Williams is pretty excited about this too.
Yeah. I mean, talk of bona fide dudes. I mean, Kyren emerged as a star last year, and particularly he loves like I said, the duo run. Duo is everyone's favorite run. It's like one of the most efficient, effective runs in the NFL right now. But running backs love it because it is so straightforward, no pun intended, of like what you're trying to do to this one player. And it's like this space can open up in a variety of different ways with some of the blocking stuff that they do and the motion stuff and the sifting and all of that. But like once you see hole, hit hole, like that is, and Kyren loves that because at that point his job becomes to set up the linebacker, and then he can use some of his chess moves in that way. And seeing I think for any running back, and particularly Kyren, who had so much success last year, seeing the people movers, right? That's always got to get him fired up.
It's been a really exciting offseason, and it was such an exciting season. And so to kind of keep that steam rolling, it's been awesome. So let's switch to, the secondary. There's been a few big secondary signings for the Rams. Cameron Curl, Darius Williams, Tre'Davious White. If Tre'Davious White is healthy to start the year, what kind of impact do you see him making in the secondary?
Well, when he's healthy, he's an outstanding player, first and foremost. He's also more versatile than I think people think. He could play the star. He could play on the outside. He could play a little safety if they really wanted him to. I think he'd be most effective at corner, but in a pinch, he could fill in pretty much anywhere in the defensive backfield. I think the most important thing for all of these moves, not just Trey, but also Darius and Cam Curl, is, again, that experience. A couple years ago, the Rams went really young and loaded up in the draft on a bunch of defensive backs, particularly corners. They went young again last year, other than Ahkello Witherspoon, and then had Jordan Fuller and John Johnson at the end of the year there. But their strategy of going young, it's very clear to me that they want more veteran experience in that room because of the moves that they made. It's kind of rare that, Cam Curl is the first multi-year contract that a safety's had on this team since 2019. Right. So it's really interesting where they're investing, and it's kind of showing you, okay, here's what worked, and the position versatility and the flexibility that like a Kobe Durant has, for example, like, okay, that worked. And that's like, he's a player that they want to continue to, invest in his growth. And doing that sometimes also means bringing in other veterans who are also versatile. The position flexibility for all of those players is what really stands out to me, as well as the fact that instead of being very, very young like they were a couple years ago on this secondary, now they're going to have a mix of some proven veterans and then continuing to infuse with younger talent as well.
Yeah, you alluded to it. I mean, what are some ways you see Chris Shula and Aubrey Pleasant working through all the different combinations with Curl, Quentin Lake, and all the corners? Yeah,
well, pretty much most of them could play anywhere.
Right.
So that's fascinating to me because what a lot of people don't know about Chris Shula is that Chris Shula actually was the one who identified Brandon Staley back before the 2020 season and put his name on Sean's desk saying, hey, this dude's doing some really interesting things with quarters coverages and light boxes and odd fronts, at the college level, doing some crazy stuff down there at John Carroll, and then was up in the Fangio system as well, obviously quarters and zone and match zone and those types of things. And so Chris kind of is from that same philosophy, right? When I remember thinking, it was so surprising to me when I first got here in 2020, because I came from covering a 4-down front team and an even front team. And it was like, pass rush dictates coverage. Well, when I started learning from Brandon Staley and then later from Raheem Morris as well, it was a lot of like coverage dictating front, because this league is built around stopping the passer. And so I think that this is going to be really interesting to see them become a lot more versatile with their post snap looks than perhaps they were in the past.
This is great, Jourdan. Thank you so much for your time and your knowledge. As always, you guys, Jammies, make sure you're following Jourdan on all accounts, because that is where I get all my information. So make sure you're doing that. Jourdan, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, we are less than 2 weeks away from the most wonderful time of the year, the NFL draft. And who better to get us ready for it than Bucky Brooks, draft analyst for NFL Media and co-host of the Move the Sticks podcast. Bucky, how are you?
I'm good. How's everything? How's everything in Ramsland?
Ramsland is great. Ramsland is excited. We have our huge draft experience at Hermosa Beach coming up. I know you'll be busy in Detroit, but I get to relax on the beach with all the Rams fans hanging out down there. It's going to be awesome.
Nah, that sounds like fun. I mean, shoot, if I didn't have to work, I think I would make my way down to Hermosa.
Yeah, you would have to. I would force you there. So we are literally 2 weeks away, 257 players across 7 rounds. Bucky, how many players do you scout, and do you have a cutoff? Do you have a rule, like at 7 o'clock I'm pouring a glass of wine? Like what's the draft rules?
So it's different. It's so different being on this side. And a lot of it depends on role and responsibility. So I have been doing Path to the Draft for however many years. And so like a lot of that is more top heavy. So at the beginning of my existence, you would make sure that you knew the top 125, top 150 players, and then you begin to get into the stuff late. Well, now you do more of the draft stuff. We have all these different channels and all this other stuff that we're popping on. So it's really required you to go deep. So you have to know like 330, 350 names and all that. Some of them better than others, but it does require a lot of study.
Yeah, I can't even imagine. The Rams' last first-round pick was 2016 with Jared Goff. The Rams' 11 picks are tied for a league high with a few other teams. If, and I use the word if because we never know what Les Snead is going to pull off when it comes to draft picks, but if they stay at 19, who do you see them focusing on here?
So it's so wide open, right? So there's so many different avenues that you could take. So like, let's take the traditional conventional path, which would be, hey, let's make sure that we find a way to make sure the defense is good. So it can be an interior player or an exterior player, outside player that can make plays. So if it's an interior player, let's just say Byron Murphy is there, Texas defensive tackle. He's there. You can slot him in. Not that he could replace Aaron Donald, but you can slot him in and have a guy that can give you some of that inside presence. If you go outside, then Layatu Latu could be in play. Jerry Verse could be in play, where you have another pass rush to go opposite Byron Young and do some interesting things. It is a real unique situation for the Rams because you're good enough as presently constructed, but you're always looking to get better. And then the other thing that could come into play would be, what if a quarterback is there that they feel really, really good about? Like, no one knows because obviously we're not privy to those discussions, but what if they're saying, hey, Matthew Stafford is nearing the end of the road. Let's see if we can find a quarterback to be the next one. Bring him in now, let him learn behind him, and then he's ready to go. So is that a Bo Nix? Is that a Michael Penix? Is that a J.J. McCarthy if he happens to be sitting there? I think all of those things are in play. And because the Rams are sitting at 19, you can't really make a hard and fast scenario because you don't control what the 18 in front of you are going to do.
Right. I know a lot of the mock drafts have been going in the direction of that edge rusher, and especially, I mean, like you said, you cannot replace Aaron
Hmm.
Donald. And with his retirement, I think, are there any, and you listed a few like specific defensive tackles like that have really impressed you? Is how deep is that class? Is that something that you think is a safe bet to assume for the Rams?
So, I mean, if we think about the Rams at the first pick, so at 19, one, let's give you like a point of reference. Most drafts have about 18 to 20 players that are truly graded out as first round picks, 18 to 24 that are truly graded out as first round picks. And so, even though they're 32 picks, there are not enough guys that quote unquote qualify as first round picks. So, selections 25 to 45, 50, they could be a hodgepodge of players that some people view as first rounders, others don't, and they go. The Rams are sitting in a spot where they could get a first round talent there. So we talked about Byron Murphy. There's another one in Johnny Newton, Jourdan Newton from Illinois, who could be a factor in it in the first round. But then you go to the second round, and the second round can really be fruitful because you think about guys like a Brendan Dorless, Braden Fisk from Florida State, guys that can play, but they're not quite. Um, Look, they're not necessarily flawless, but they're solid enough to be second round picks who can come in and start. So they will have some options when it comes to looking at the defensive tackle class. It's a matter of, do they feel like they need to move up, or can they kind of sit and
Mm.
wait for those players to fall to them?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Kobe Turner and Byron Young had an outstanding rookie seasons, 9 and 8 sacks, respectively. So it'll be interesting to see who Chris Shula feels is like a fit, and like I think that's great perspective. Is it worth moving up for or sitting back? Because the Rams have had great success hitting on day 2 and 3 picks. I mean, Cooper Kupp, Kyron Williams, Puka Nakua, Kobe Turner, just to name a few. Is there a reason behind this success, or do you think it all just comes into sort of where the Rams and their scouting department like value where they can get the best value for these picks?
No, look, I don't. It's definitely something that is intentional. I can't say it's just a coincidence that they've hit on so many players year after year after year.
I don't think
Uh,
so either.
Yeah, like I think they have a profile that they look for, and it appears that profile includes guys that are very mature. You see them take guys that are a little older, guys that have played a lot, so they kind of are really confident in what they can deliver and what they bring. The other thing that I would say is a part of it is they have coaches who are willing to teach and play the younger players. It's one thing to draft a guy; it's another thing to put them in a game and let them kind of work through some of those mistakes. I would say it's a testament to the job that Sean McVay and the coaching staff, what they've done to get their guys ready to play. The preparation has been on point. That's why you've seen so many of these unheralded players come and play well. So it's the coaching, it's the scheme, it's maybe the overlooked pedigree that the players bring, but everyone is kind of responsible for the success that the Rams have had in the last few years.
I mean, if we look at a season like Puka Nakua's rookie season last year, and I mean, I guess a perceived lack of speed was maybe
Mm-hmm.
a reason that Puka and some others fell in the draft. And as someone who, you study the combine and you're there on the ground and everything, after the record season that he had, do you think that there's been a shift in, you know, teams and talk about even the Rams specifically, like it's not necessarily just the 40 time, and maybe it's time to start looking if guys can just like flat out play ball.
Yeah, no, I think there is something to that. I think the other thing that goes with the 40 time that the Rams were one of the first ones to the party at the forefront of the movement is all of these college teams have some kind of GPS system where they can track the player's speed
Right.
and those things. The Rams have kind of leaned into, hey, we're not worried about the 40 time. Let's get some of these in-game measurements and numbers to put up the data. So now game speed is different than time speed or manufacturer speed that can happen on the track. That I believe has kind of helped them become more comfortable with some of the players. The other thing has been, look, their willingness to say, hey, we give guys opportunities. We're going to take young guys, we can put them on the field. We're going to live with some of the issues that may happen when you play a younger player. And they've been patient enough, and they've had enough poise to kind of get to the other side, and they're kind of receiving the fruits of their labor.
Well, that's all I got for you, Bucky. You want to make any home run predictions? Like, do you think the Rams stay at 19? Do you think you know who they're going to pick?
Okay, so my home run prediction would be that the house that the Rams draft will be magnificent. It'll be a
Okay, well,
magnificent
that's a
draft
given.
house that I'm sure that they've always done that well. No, I expect them the first time to have a first round pick since Jared Goff. I think they're gonna go for a blue
Yep.
chip player, and you hear this talked about all the time, best player available and those things. I think when you've been without a first round pick for so long, you're just going to take the best player. You're not going to worry about trying to make it fit a need or any of those things. I think they're going to take a blue chip player there. I think they would love for it to skew towards a defensive lineman, a pass rusher. But if it's not that, I think you can be confident that it'd be a name that we've heard, one of the buzzier names, and they're going to be confident that they can get this player and make him make way. He can make waves immediately. So I think it's going to be a star player at 19.
Reminder, NFL Network provides live coverage of the 2024 NFL Draft in Detroit, April 25th through 27th. Bucky, thank you so much. I know this is the busiest time of year for you. I appreciate you stopping by, and it's really good to see you.
Hey, good seeing you. Thanks for having me on.
That does it for this week's Ricky's Ram Jam. What an exciting episode. I promised and I think I delivered. Jourdan Rodrigue, Bucky Brooks, that was so much fun. And I am just so excited looking ahead to the NFL draft. We're going to be down at the Rams Draft Experience at Hermosa Beach. Make sure if you're in the area, come check it out. It's going to be such a great time. And until then, Jammies, you know what to do. Let's ram it.